panel in what has been a truly inspiring and exciting day. This panel is Speaking Renewal in Lawrence, Massachusetts. My name is Lana Barber. I'm from the State University of New York at Old Westbury. I'm going to be moderating, but I'm going to do my best to stay out of the way. So I'm going to let them speak. We've got some great panelists here today, and then hopefully at the end we'll have about 15 minutes for question and answer. So if you don't mind holding your questions till the end, that would be great. I'll let you introduce yourself if you're ready.
My name is Anthony DeCruzier, and let me tell you at the beginning that what makes this a little bit interesting to me is more people than I expected, quite frankly, but I'm surprised to see that we're still here. And what we're going to do is start off at the beginning as to what the Plains area was. It was old shantytown in Lawrence. And parts of Lawrence where I grew up was at on White Street. That's not where I grew up, by the way. That happens to be a restaurant. And there were a lot of Lebanese restaurants there because there were two Catholic churches, St. Joseph's and St. Anthony's. But I think the input of what was taking place in Lawrence in around the 40s when I was born was the fact that you had various churches of ethnic backgrounds. For example, the church across the street, which was called the Holy Rosary Church, was supposedly the Italian church. And then you had St. Mary's, which was supposedly the Irish church, which was the mother church. And if we go to the next picture, that was typically what the area looked like. You had 3 deckers, 2 deckers, and hot water was a luxury, believe it or not. There was no such thing as central heat. People used to huddle and hang their laundry at the end of their porches. In fact, one easy method of communicating was to throw a basket down, and somebody would fill it up with groceries and you can lift it up. Let's go to the next one. And that typically was taking place. You had commercial dwellings at the bottom, and you had apartments on top. And usually the owner of one of the businesses would live on top of the apartment. And that is part of Hampshire Street, which is a major street in the city of Lawrence. The next one is, this Cleaners is kind of interesting. It's still there, and I'll address that in the future. Because I'm maintaining that the urban renewal that took place in Lawrence in 64 to 70, they just didn't finish it. And it's about time we consider finishing it. The Cleaners is still there, but it's falling apart. And that happens to abut the property that I own. That building is now gone, that 3-decker. It's now a vacant lot, which used to be a community center. You want to keep going? And typically, you know, you had 3 deckers, no central heat, no hot water, 1 bathroom if you're lucky. And by the way, we didn't have a problem with men's rooms and women's rooms. You know, you just had the same bathroom growing up. It didn't matter who you were. But as the city started to find out, and this is Elm Street, which is near Hampshire, and near St. Mary's Church, as soon as the rumor went out and the records started getting recorded, so to speak, people started to leave. When they left, let's go on, you'll see broken windows. In fact, there's the building, and that's the outline of the area, which was Hampshire Street, White Street, Bennington Street, Lebanon Street, Chestnut and Oak. And let's go on to and that becomes the aerial view of 1965, which is just about the time that the houses started to come down. Let's go to the next one. Again, it's in the surrounding area. You notice now the houses that were there are all gone. So by 68, it was all demolished. Let's go on to the next one. And again in 65, it was a little bit of a bustling area. Not much. The mills were gone. And this structure here is the ugliest thing you'll ever see. That's called the City Barns. It should have come down 100 years ago. It's still up there. It's contaminated. It's been closed I don't know how many times. It's a piece of the project that has never changed. That should go away. As a matter of fact, what abuts it is the Spigot River. And the Spigot River Greenway is a very nice area, except for that ugly city pond that's contaminated. Our project is behind it. And again, that was part of the original Bishop's. I don't know if anybody heard of Bishop's Restaurant 1,000 years ago. That was on White Street. Then got moved through Renewal to next to the police station. It's now, I believe, a gas station. So they're gone. But it was an Arabic restaurant. Now that's the famous house that I was born in, and I've probably been in that room there, okay? And it didn't look that bad then. I guess it looks a little terrible today. We'll keep going. And by the way, all these streets, 79 to 83, all these streets had alleyways. And that's where a lot of recycling takes place. With one horse pulling a trailer along the way, recycling everything. And this is what was originally the old Doc's Pizza. You notice there are 3 stories on top of that. That was filed White Street. So, you know, we did have one gas station there. That came down, obviously. And that's at the gas station. And that was the, this is kind of interesting how, you've heard it through other sessions. You had in the same 3 to 4 to 5 blocks, you had the Hibernians, which was quote Irish, obviously. Next to that, you had St. Mary's Church, the Mary Immaculate Church, and then you had St. Joseph's Church next to it, which was Lebanese, and St. Anthony's together. And you also had an Arabic society. And that's the famous John Green that started the funeral home. He's now, I think, his 4th generation. And this was part of the Maple Street area, which is near the Mary Immaculate Nursing Home, which was changed. And that was, I believe, the old McCulloch's drugstore. This big church here, steeple, that's St. Mary's. That's still existing. And we have some pictures of McCulloch's, which was an area that everybody stopped by. That no longer exists. Pilot Parkside West is now in that area. All right, we're finished with McCulloch's. That's Mary Immaculate Nursing Home, the original. Now that used to be where senior citizens would be. And I lived across the street from it. And you also had what was known as an orphanage, where kids would go to school there, didn't have a mother or father. And that's part of the old Nahil's drugstore that was moved 3 times until it finally closed. And now you have the famous Nicholas eating establishment, which was Arabic in nature. And I think his slogan was, where the elite eat. And his wife, by the way, used to be the organist for St. Mary's Church, which is kind of interesting, because he was Arabic. And his wife was Mary Moynihan. She played in St. Mary's Parish as part of the organist. Then you have another view of Nicholas. That's the pyramid, which is now it's no longer existing. It's an Arabic restaurant, again on the same street as Wolf's.
So, sir, can I interrupt for a second? I'm sorry. When you say Arabic, what exactly do you mean?
Lebanese.
Lebanese, okay.
More than Syrian.
Okay.
However, 2 blocks down the road, you had a Jewish community center. So in one area, you had the Arabics people, which were mostly Lebanese, and you had 2 bakeries, 3 bakeries. You had a lot of Irish people from the Shanty area that was part of the Plains area, near St. Mary's. You had some Jewish at the end of Hampshire Street. And we all lived together without bothering each other. We all enjoyed each other's food, as a matter of fact. And that was next to the United Syrian Society. Please don't confuse the Syrians with the Lebanese, because you'll have a war already. Okay? What else you got there? Oh, this was part of the monastery, so to speak, which then became part of the where the nuns used to reside, near Mary Immaculate Church, and that was Mary Immaculate Orphanage, as they called it then. And I think we lived over here on the right. I think that's it. Now, since that time, I noticed that no one was talking about the history of urban renewal. And what is somewhat confusing to me was that in 1964, when urban renewal started to go on its way, the Supreme Court spoke loudly in the Kalo case, which indicated that even though you can take, the government can take private property, it can be used for a public purpose or a public good. That now gets expanded. Now you go from private property to taking all the property down and selling it, so to speak, to a private person. Well, that was an expansion of eminent domain as you know it. That expansion...
Parkside was built as part of urban renewal.
I think you better shut that off.
Sorry.
Go ahead. The next part is we're going to be talking about Parkside. This is a picture of Parkside, as you can see it. You can see it up here. And Parkside replaced 7 city blocks. And there are 7 buildings. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that area now houses 146 units. And part of urban renewal, which takes place there, is something that has changed from affordable housing to, believe it or not, we have 98 Section 8 units. The 98 units are project-based. That means that people apply right to our apartments to get in. And right now we have a waiting list of well over 1,000 applications. And the offset from affordable housing to low-income housing comes in with the advent of the 70s and 80s with Section 8 housing. Section 8 housing is an interesting concept where you pay no more than 25 to 30% of your gross or net income adjusted, where your rent would be hypothetically to have a 2-bedroom unit at Parkside, it's $1,050. And if, let's say you're earning $10 an hour, your rent will probably be around $250 to $300 a month. And you're dealing mostly with families, people that are working. You do have some welfare recipients. The breakdown of Parkside is kind of interesting because it's pretty well diversified. In fact, we have had families that have lived here for the last 40 years, believe it or not, along with their families and their children now that have apartments next to them. This section that we're going to go into, and if I'm running out of time, let me know right away.
About 7 minutes.
Good. We can go through this. This will explain Parkside to you. So I hope you get the voice if you don't.
Parkside Apartments was built as part of the urban renewal project in the late 60s. Occupancy started to take place in the early 70s. I acquired Parkside Apartments, which is 146 units, in September of 1975. I found that Parkside was unique because it's surrounded by institutions. And White Street - Lebanon Street, White Street being this area, was part of the old pre-urban renewal project. St. Mary's schools, churches abut us to the eastern side of Parkside. The western side of Parkside is abutted by some city property and the Spigot River. Along the other side of Parkside, which is more on the northeasterly side, is another urban renewal project that's in good shape. We're very proud of Parkside because it's been in the family since 1975. We have no intentions of selling the property. Parkside has gone through a number of renovations. Currently, we have done re-siding in building 1, 2, and 3. We're planning to re-side building 4, 5, 6, 7. The cost of the re-siding will be around $300,000. Parkside's intention is to upgrade. The video will continue by video shooting each building, and you'll see on each building the street address. believe the parkside is in very good shape. There's no serious problems anywhere, environmentally or otherwise. Parkside is heated by gas heat. There's no kind of oil burners anywhere, oil tanks anywhere. And it's also individually monitored for tenants to pay utilities. Parkside is profitable because of the management team and also the maintenance team. All maintenance has been subcontracted out to Ace Construction. It's on call 24 hours a day. In fact, Ace Construction's employees live at Parkside, so it's a quick response. I hope that you'll see what we see, that is that Parkside has a long future. The refinancing will bring improvements to Parkside plus some equity pull-ups. This tall building is owned by the Lawrence Housing Authority, which we have a good relationship with. Parkside is surrounded by parks. There is a park to the north of the old church, butts the properties. Also another park at the western end of Parkside on Hampshire Street, which you don't see over there, but in this area. So as you can clearly see from the picture itself, it's a well-organized community. There are security doors, there's video cameras, all of the buildings, and the intent here is to give decent, reasonable, minimum standards of human habitation. We say above standards of human habitation for the purpose of providing our tenants with same. It's significant to note that many of our tenants are long-term tenants. We have some tenants that are over 20 years on the project. In fact, building 5, there is a family where the 2 daughters have also started their own families with their mother and father, all in the same building. So there are 3 separate families, all part of one family in one building. That's very common in Parkside. We have a waiting list of over 1,000 applications. We never have a problem with any kind of business. So I hope that you review the project. I hope you come down and see it if you can, so you can understand the unique nature of Parkside.
Let me point out to you that video was done 2 years ago when we went through a refinance, so that was the pitch that we used. And the purpose of really talking about what we're talking about today is, has urban renewal really been successful in Lawrence? You know, I've got to tell you, I think it partially has been. It certainly needs a lot of new things to happen. And one of the goals was early on that if you get rid of the blight, maybe you can get involved with code enforcement so that you make 2-deckers and 3-deckers habitable. I would point out to you that the whole concept of the law of eminent domain is disturbing. I don't mind telling you. I think that one of the things that has to happen is that instead of getting it from one private person to another private person, that you get involved with public good. I know that my time is running out, and thank you, little angel, because that's what they used to call us years ago, as the clock time. If you have any questions, please let me know. I must have did something right. No question.
But we're going to save questions for that, so don't disappear, please, if you don't mind.
All right.
So my name is Mark Feller. I'm a teacher at Phillips Academy. I teach Spanish, and I have been partnering for about 13 years with different organizations in the city, as well as Lawrence High and other schools. And the last, I think, since 2012, actually, since the year that the article of City of the Dam came out, we've been working on this particular project, which is an oral history project in collaboration with Lawrence Community Works and Lawrence History Center. Originally, we set out to make a documentary telling the stories of Lawrence in the voices of Lawrence Laurentians. Everything from the good to the bad and everything in between is what my partner Chris Benitez, who was at Lawrence Community Works at the time, that's how he described it. And then we moved on from that ambitious idea of the documentary to the continuing storytelling through many oral histories. And we've developed a blog which you will see snippets of. That's called "We the People: Voices of the Immigrant City," or also "Nosotros el Pueblo: Voces de la Ciudad de Inmigrantes" in Spanish. So it's a bilingual blog, and it has videos that are bilingual and showcase many voices of people who live in the immigrant city. They're not all immigrants themselves, but they have lived the immigrant experience in some way, shape, or form. So we can move to the next slide. And so this is the landing page of that, and the website as well. We have, I think, 18 oral histories there currently, and we're currently working on 5 more that will be posted by the end of the season. And generally speaking, we look for a good mix of representation from the city. So they may be Latinos, but they also may be people of other ethnicities and cultures and races. And we also try to represent different generations of voices, as well as different classes, different professions, from students to teachers to attorneys to historians, some formerly homeless people living in the YMCA, also artists, musicians. Those are the voices that we have represented. So it's a really exciting project. This year, in preparation for the symposium on urban renewal, the class with these are 3 of the students. We started off with in the winter we had 25 students, and this spring we're on trimesters. We have 17 students working on various projects throughout the city, and including 5 oral history projects. We focused on mostly urban renewal. The 3 students that are with me today will they'll represent stories of urban renewal, different voices, as I said, and they'll show video clips from each of their interviews that they're working on. They're still unpolished and they're still unfinished. The big unveiling, the premiere event, will be June 1st. At an opening at Lawrence Heritage State Park. A group of students is also working on curating an exhibit at the Heritage State Park on 38 years of Hispanic Week in Lawrence as well. So we invite you to come to our opening Wednesday, June 1st. That's at 3 o'clock at the Lawrence Heritage State Park. So we can move to the next slide. So I'm going to introduce the 3 students, and you can come up one at a time. So Howard Johnson spoke with Jonas Stanza, and then up next will be Akil, and he will speak. He spoke with Armin Hyatt, and some of you may have met him at this morning's first session. And Jonas has been around as well. And Lila spoke with Isabel and Marissa Melendez, and we've heard their voices captured through many people speaking today. And so we're really excited to tell these stories. And they're going to speak and show their videos about 10 minutes each. And I think they might have some interactivity with them if time allows. And then of course there's Q&A at the end. So thank you very much. So Howard, if you want to do this.
How's it going? So I talked with Jonas Stanza. He's Lithuanian. He grew up in Lawrence. And when me and my partner Michael Najum, who's not here right now, kind of explored urban renewal with him, as a kid he kind of said, when he grew up, so there's this population of like Eastern and Western European immigrants, along with Lebanese, that he touched upon. And he also talked about how he, growing up, appreciated, he went to school with a diverse group of classmates, and also loved to eat from different types of foods from the different countries of the city of Lawrence offered at the time. And so, but he said when the process of urban renewal started, we would just see kind of disappearances. And whether that would be in school, half of his classmates would be gone one day. And no one would really explain to him how that happened, where they were going. And since there was no way to really communicate in the way we have now with like cellular devices, technology, those disappearances were just kind of accepted and the kids would move on. That happened with restaurants, that happened with housing. There's a clip that we have, not in this part, where he said he would just go through with his friends rubble and look for things that he would find, and that'd be a pastime for them, that'd be a game. And the housing isn't really the way he made it sound like, or the way his opinion, he presented his opinion. 6 or 7 blocks of housing just disappeared, and it's rubble for a long time before anything new happens. And after that, after new people come in, he felt like it's kind of this disjointed flow of people, and it's not all at the same time. And he spoke a little bit about how that kind of took away from a sense of community within his community. So if you want to play the video, we can.
So we have the speaker right here, so you're gonna have to listen real closely. Jonas's voice is not loud, so we'll have to be patient with that.
So I guess to start off, could you tell us a little bit about your involvement in like the Lawrence History Center and how long you've been here?
Okay, I was on the first board of directors for the History Center. I was on the advisory board, which started in the archives, and then served on the first board for 6 years. I served secretary, and served treasurer, vice president, and president.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at the very beginning. We had homes at YWCA, and then worked on staff with the archives for a multitude of years when we went to the Southwest Branch of the Public Library, and then later worked with Bertha Dang, the founder of the archives, when we purchased this building. Because you went all through the years with St. Joe, like the school, after the season, this is where everything, all the investors, and this really, they just disappeared. And nothing was really explained to us. It was like, I said, someone speak to how your friends. So we saw the change that occurred. And, like I said, it's not those friends. And, no one says that you move to the door. At that time, we didn't have everyone's phone number. There was no interlinking, with technology or that. The kids left, they were gone from the neighborhood. There was so much open again. And you just realize after a while that this is what was all going on. We buy bread and walk down. So we went to the Italian bakery. And then all of a sudden, the whole bakery was on. So we were noticing, like, and you were buying the building's closed, and then a month later, gone, the building was gone. And then you start to see just large areas just this. Because before they started to construct, for these large cans of Kingsbury gardens, that's like six or seven city blocks. That's right on St. Anthony's, right? Those houses there.
So obviously a lot of what I just kind of presented, he talked about in there. But this idea of kind of unexplained disappearance is primarily Jonas's perspective on urban renewal. He doesn't, he didn't say, in our talks with him, he didn't necessarily mention anything largely positive outside of this kind of disappearance, and this is and like loss of like friendships, community, culture, or not culture, obviously it's being replaced, but just these unexplained disappearances were his primary perspective on urban renewal. And if anyone has any questions, I can try to answer them too. But is that?
So when Armin Hyatt talks about his childhood, he presents this kind of idealized picture. He'll tell you about Essex Street, all the marvelous wonders that would happen when you were walking down, all the shops you'd see. He'll tell you about the playgrounds and the parks and even the parking lot, which to him, growing up, kind of represented their own kind of fantasy land. And most of all, he'll tell you about the place he grew up, which was a 7 or 8 story building that was owned by his uncle, where he lived with his mother, his father, who was a lawyer, a lot of his extended family, and some workers in a nearby company. And he'll talk to you about how formative that was in his life. He'll also tell you about how 25 years later, after he was done with law school, after he came back to Lawrence from San Diego, he saw that very same building being torn down. And for Armin, this was a very moving experience. It was kind of, in a way, symbolized the end of not only his childhood, but also his innocence. Now, this city he'd grown up in was changing rapidly, and sometimes not in a good way. So basically, when he found out that his home, the building he'd grown up in, was being destroyed, he also found out that it was a part of a broader effort throughout the neighborhood. Now, a couple square blocks of the area, his neighbors, his friends, even people going as far as the Lawrence Common, their homes were being destroyed, much like his was. Except for many of them, these homes were had been made as affordable housing, and these homes represented for a lot of people their last opportunities, and they represented things that were crucial to their well-being. For Armin Hayek, he was a successful lawyer. He had found his housing in a very different part of the city. And he realized very quickly the impact that this urban renewal was having on so many families, which led him to found something called Lawrence Community Works, which I think most of you are familiar with. So this is Armin's story of what brought him, the fight that brought him to found Lawrence Community Works.
Lawrence Community Works was sort of founded on the tail end of a fight to make sure that some housing got built. They decided to put some sports fields in, which is fine. The place needs that, but there was really no plan for providing for the residents who had been displaced. And we discovered that the city was trying to eliminate the possibility of affordable housing in this neighborhood, and that was absolutely unacceptable to some of us. Like Isabel Melendez, who originally kind of put my attention to it, because I was more concerned about losing a place where I lived in. But I told you it was a beautiful brick building, 11 units, 11 flats above some commercial space. And then all the rest of the neighbors that we had. And where we're standing is where Savastano's restaurant used to be, and there was all kinds of cool stuff here. And I was like, oh, this neighborhood is being torn down. But Isabel Melendez pointed out to me that there's also going to be a lot of residents displaced, and what are we going to do about that? So we decided to fight under the banner of Immigrant City Community Housing Corporation, and we succeeded in building this development that you see right here. This housing complex that we built did not come easy. The Lawrence Redevelopment Authority was in charge of choosing a developer, and we had to fight and threaten to sue the city in order to get the rights to build this. And we eventually succeeded, and this is now co-op. It's an affordable housing co-op where 140 families live. And there's a community center right here, a little small community room with people to get their mail and stuff like that. But if you look around, I mean, none of this, this was the city that actually picked a profiteer, a for-profit developer who was going to build, duplex houses here that look like they belonged in an urban setting. In a rural setting, and it made no sense. Plus, there was no affordability component. So that's when we threatened to sue the city. We actually had a complaint. We got affidavits from some of the displaced residents who talked about their need for housing, and we confronted the city, and they finally caved, and they reopened the process. They canceled the successful bidder that they had awarded it to in the first place, and withdrew, and they restarted the Lawrence CDC for Boston, and we realized this is a community development corporation, and we realized how important it is to have a community development corporation. So that's why we started Lawrence Community Development.
So as you can see, very much still a work in progress, but the general message that I hope to convey of Armin's through this video is that it's a story of kind of Armin seeing things falling down, being torn down around him, and deciding to try to do something about that. In connecting with the theme of urban renewal, it's showing how sometimes, like the original proposal, which didn't have any affordability component, which sought to destroy so many people's homes and livelihoods with some of the businesses that were destroyed, there was an example of urban renewal that had gone wrong, but with the beautiful development of the affordable housing co-op that Armin and Lawrence Community Works was able to build, like there are ways that, at least in Armin's opinion, urban redevelopment can aid the city.
Hi, I'm Lila, and I had the privilege of interviewing and speaking with Isabel and Marisa Melendez. So they're both huge activists in the community. Isabel served on the Greater Lawrence Community Action Council board, where Marisa, she passed it down, is now the head. Isabel came to Lawrence in 1959. She was one of the first 4 or 5 Hispanic families in the entire city. So she really came before Lawrence. I mean, now we know Lawrence is about 75% Latino. So she was really in the minority. She suffered a lot as an immigrant here. One of my favorite, well, not favorite, but like quote that stood out to me from our interviews with her was, I suffered a lot. When I was here in the United States, I was thinking of my Puerto Rico. And from these experiences, I didn't want anyone to suffer like Isabel Melendez had. And so from her suffering and from her struggle that she had as being really in the minority and as a new immigrant that didn't really speak the language, it's hard to get a job, she used that to create momentum and is really a godmother of the community of Lawrence right now, serving everyone. And she, so when we came to interview her for our first interview, me and one of my classmates who interviewed with her, we came to her office at the General Donovan School, and for me this was sort of the first time that I'd seen a positive urban redevelopment. And in our class we've been reading a lot about all the negatives of these houses being destroyed and the people have nowhere to go. And so when we came to this General Donovan School, we interviewed her, and she told us a little bit of the story of the building. So this community or the neighborhood that it was in was really run down. The whole building was empty. She said when she found it, she like sort of went searching inside, and it was full of graffiti and drugs, and this neighborhood was known for high crime rates and just like not a very desirable place to be for many people. And so when she bought the building and decided to make it the foundation and the sort of the center for her work in the community, where she now has a bunch of offices and programs that are running out of it, helping people to study for their citizenship exam. And she's really just a resource for people in the community to come to with any issues, concerns, support, and she continues to run those right now. So when so she told us the story of the building, and she totally turned it into this community center and renovated it and turned it into this much better looking building. And actually, as a result of that, they saw that the area around the neighborhood began to be much less crime, much fewer cases of drugs, abuse, and stuff like that. And just by extending her kindness to the people around her and developing this one building into a place for the community to come and interact and benefit, it really impacted the whole area around her, which I thought was really cool because we hadn't really seen something like that before. So in our interview, we have Marisa and Isabel. Behind them is the Parco de Roberto Clemente, which is where Semana Hispana has a huge part, and obviously it's very important to Isabel. She's been on the board and was one of the huge contributors and founders for that has been going on for 30 years. So yeah, we can play our little interview with them. It's in Spanish, so I'll do a little translation after.
In the final videos, there will be subtitles too, so if you want to go back and visit our blog, you will see. You'll be able to understand it if you don't understand the Spanish.
Bueno, para mí es como de la noche al día, la noche al día, comparado a cuando llegué, por ejemplo, en 1959, a lo que soy, es una diferencia bastante, pero bastante grande en todo sentido, en la parte, como diría, física interna y todo de la ciudad. Las calles, muchas cambiaron de que eran una sola vía, son dos. Las viviendas no existían los distritos de tantos proyectos, eran edificios inmensos, 3, 4, hasta 6 pisos. El negocio, la calle, especialmente la calle S, que era tan, es que ya te digo, ha sido un cambio terrible, naturalmente, de muchas mejoras, muy diferente. Tú buscas hacia atrás y dices, Dios mío, lo que era Lorena, lo que es Lorena hoy. Naturalmente ya Isabel Medellín va borrando un poco, pero todavía algunas fachadas de algunas casas y de la apariencia se te quedan grabadas. Cuando buscabas por las calles y acabando de llegar de Puerto Rico, tú piensas encontrar una tienda latina, alguien hablando en la calle. Cuando tú caminabas por las calles que veías historias de diferente, te podrás imaginar cómo te sientes. Y hoy en día, ¿no? Porque tú llegas y no importa, crees que estás en tu país, porque están hablando español allí, o hay una tienda allí, o hay todo lo que hay en los países latinoamericanos, tú lo encuentras ahora aquí en Lore. Y es una diferencia, sí, por eso es que vive como de la noche al día. Si tú notas, y ojalá ese pasado no bueno, porque ya el pasado y el presente ahora es lo que realmente te revive. Well, our renewal
So I don't know how much people catch a couple words here and there, but basically she talks about, so she came here in 1959, right, sort of before the, or like as the urban renewal was happening in Lawrence, and she makes a comparison between when she came and now, and being she presents this really new perspective to our whole study of urban renewal as an immigrant who doesn't speak the language, is not accustomed to Lawrence. She had one connection, I think it was her cousin who was there before, but really she was totally new. And to be alone in this place where she describes walking down the street and there are these huge buildings around her and there's no one that she could go to, like the bodega, and she couldn't speak her language with anyone, she couldn't have sort of any like community feeling, that was totally lost for her. And so now, as really thanks a lot to her, Lawrence is very different from that. And so she has these, she's like, I really hope that never comes back. I mean, now you feel like you're at home, you feel comfortable, you feel like you can speak and converse and have like a more sense of community. But basically, she's had a huge role in helping Lawrence come along to the place it is now, and she's played also in the positive urban renewal, and sort of like standing up for the people that were impacted by the eminent domain abuse, and also by the sort of like the urban renewal that we've been hearing about negatively.
Just a few more notes. The course that the students are involved in, it really happens over 3 trimesters, and it starts off with an exploration of the Latino presence in the U.S., and then the winter is all about getting an immersion in Lawrence and looking at the city of immigrants, the immigrant city from 1845 until the present, and analyzing that and understanding the evolution of that phrase, immigrant city, that nickname, and what it means throughout the ages. And so when we get to the post-Second World War era, the students begin to see that the Latino presence is really strong in Lawrence. And in this particular year, they've seen that that Latinos have contributed to urban renewal. They've been part of it, and that they've been a really important part of it. And so it's and Isabel Melendez, as a former candidate for the mayor's office, she clearly believed in herself. Many people believed in her, and we see that the Latinos are remaking the city. And so that's why it really takes place in the Spanish classroom. For us, we look at the history as well as the culture and other implications of immigration in the U.S. So the students, while they're reading Dr. Barber's work on the Latino city and reading other pieces, City of the Damned, a translation of it, and looking at other pieces of literature talking about the different ideas of immigration, such as Harvest of Empire by Juan Gonzalez and other works that really tell the story of Latino immigration. The students are also creating primary documents. And so these stories here become part of the repository at Lawrence History Center. And that's the beauty, one of the beauties of this collaboration, is that these are building out the archives that they have of oral histories that, by and large, stopped, I think in the 80s and 90s, and some are in the early 2000s, but they're largely representative of the Eastern European and West, the European voice, and some other voices that we hear now and then. But we recognized Lawrence Community Works, and I recognized that Lawrence History Center really lacked the Latino voice, and so that's why we came to the project. That's why we presented the project to the Lawrence History Center and began partnering with them a few years ago. So this is a project that we think has legs. We're going to continue building it. We're doing a lot more, and as I said, on June 1st, Wednesday, you can hear more voices. We've done other interviews, and we'll have a little bit of a reception and opening for our exhibit on the Hispanic food. So thank you very much, and I think we have time for Q&A with Tony and with the students. Thank you.